Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is home ownership consultant Ross Kay from the wealthyhomeowner.ca, Canada's authority on home ownership. Welcome back to the show.
And thanks for having me back, Jim.
Ross, with CMHC reversing its lending limitations enacted last June in 2020, Jim, an investment advisor for 30 years, asks, why is CMHC making it easier for buyers to qualify for a mortgage they cannot afford?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this question two ways. One will be for those who want a quick answer, and then one for people who want to gain some insight into how that we see things. First of all, CMHC did not change the rules. Okay? What happened was Romy Bowers took over from Evan Siddall, and Romy Bowers, being a chief risk officer at CMA in years past, look at what Evan Siddall did, and clearly she asked, why is he doing this? It makes no sense. So there was really only two things that are possible. Either Evan Siddall was ignorant to the organization that he was overseeing, or he was doing something different. He knew what he was doing. And Romy Bowers has reversed it. You see, when Evan Siddall enacted this change, all he did was he sent business that would have been booked at CMHC over to Sagan, which is owned by Brookfield. Sagan is formerly Genworth, another one of the three mortgage default insuring companies in Canada, and Canada Guarantee, which happens to be owned by the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan. So now this is where the story gets a little more questionable. Why did Evan Siddall say we are going to, or make a decision that would shift the preference of home buyers to utilize Sagan, owned by Brookfield, or Canada Guarantee, owned by the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, instead of CMHC, while CMHC was still underwriting all the mortgages that were being booked at Sagan and Canada Guarantee. You see, CMHC underwrites all of that insurance. Clearly, there's not a corporation in Canada who could cover the risk that's involved in insuring mortgages. But they also want, the Canadian government also wants to make it look like there's competition. Let's keep CMHC in check. So years ago there was Genworth, then Canada Guarantee. So Evan Siddall made a decision to send business, which his own company is now still underwriting, over to Sagan and Canada Guarantee. Interesting. Now, this decision by Evan Siddall had consequences. Stock values at Sagan and Brookfield went up because all of a sudden Sagan is booking more mortgage insurance. Canada Guarantee, they're booking more mortgage insurance, while CMHC is underwriting it all. Now let's take a step back, folks, because here's how negotiating thousands of transactions and interacting and negotiating against thousands of real estate agents teaches you. You must critically assess everything that's going on, because everybody's selling something. Evan Siddell was selling everyone that he knew what he was talking about, that the government of Canada was spending good money hiring him, and that he was doing a great job. That's what he was selling everybody. Well, what he was really doing was, for some strange reason, 6 months before his term was ending, he started sending business over to Sagan, Brookfield, and Canada Guarantee. Ontario Teachers Pension Plan. Now, where is Evan Siddell working today, folks? Where did he immediately go to work after leaving CMHC? He's now working for the AIMCO in Alberta, the overseer of public pensions in Alberta. Is this a coincidence? Is this another one of the crazy coincidences that we see in the housing market? How big are these coincidences? Well, let's look at Toronto's chief planner, Jennifer Keesmaat. Jennifer Keesmaat was enacting planning strategy that was designed to benefit the big builders of rental housing. She did this nonstop, year after year after year, as chief planner. She did this, and she was basically the rock star of the housing community, the planning community in Canada, being the go-to source for media references. Well, all of a sudden, out of the blue, she decided first to run for mayor, failed, but then decided, wait a second, I'm not going to be a planner anymore. I'm going to go into the private sector, and guess where she was hired, folks? Westbank. She left her planning job to work directly for the firm. Her own policies and planning strategies benefit. Oh, that's a one-off. Okay, let's go on. Let's look at Tim Hudak. Tim Hudak was the minister responsible for the institution of the Real Estate and Business Brokers Act revision in 2002 in Ontario. Tim Hudak was the actual minister in charge. The Ontario Real Estate Association negotiated an unbelievable deal for its members in the creation of the Real Estate and Business Brokers Act. The deal was so unbelievable that consumers were the ones who paid the price. There was no dual agency was continued to be allowed, buyer agency was limited, and home buyers could not actually hire a realtor and financially reward them for getting them a lower price. OREA was very successful lobbying Tim Hudak. Well, when Tim Hudak announced he was no longer going to be in Parliament, guess where he got employed? The Ontario Real Estate Association. That's right. The minister who gave concession to the Ontario Real Estate Association when forming the Real Estate and Business Brokers Act, became the president of the Ontario Real Estate Association the moment he left politics. The moment. That's another instance. What about Mark Carney? Let's look at, or the Carneyval, as we call. Mark Carney was in power when Brookfield was in big trouble in Canada. Royal LePage was on the rocks. Royal LePage had been suffering through the Great Recession. Sales were down. They were in big trouble. All of a sudden, along comes Carney. Carney enacts policies that specifically benefited Brookfield and Royal LePage. Then magically Carney takes a job over in England. Now that's not magic, but the magic is, guess who moves over to England on Carney's tail? Brookfield. Brookfield buys the Canary Wharf, while, because of Carney's policy changes, interest rate changes in England, that benefited Brookfield. Interesting. Well, that doesn't mean anything wrong. Well, guess what, folks? Guess where Carney's working today? Brookfield. Like, you just can't make this stuff up. So, the question we all must ask, those that have listened on to this segment up until this point, is, did Evan Fidel knowingly take business away from CMHC, send it to Sagan and Canada Guarantee, and somehow the benefit of that became a job in AIMCO? Is that possible? Now, you're listening. It's not a conspiracy theory when this repeats itself over and over and over again. When I started selling real estate, the largest real estate developer in Canada, called Mattamy, you all know it, the largest builder in North America today, was on the ropes because the Great Housing Correction had begun. They had just launched the Millcroft subdivision in Burlington. Well, we had a city planner at that time called Mike Bryant. And Mike Bryant allowed Millcroft, Mattamy, to negotiate some great deals on their lot exemption for the Millcroft subdivision. I mean, they were having you have to understand, folks, in around 1990, 91, you couldn't sell a house in Ontario. Housing prices were falling faster than apples fall, rotten apples fall from a tree. Mattamy would have gone bankrupt if it wasn't able to extract itself from that situation. Well, it got all these great concessions. Guess what happened? All of a sudden, Mr. Bryant left the city of Burlington and magically was employed by Mattamy. I remember my dad telling me when I said, oh, I see Bryant's over at Mattamy now. Dad said, oh yeah, Ross, that's just how it goes in the business. The planning department has this. They used to get paid cash from the builders to make zoning changes or to allow exemptions. That this is just how the system works. So here's the problem, Jim. You have a whole bunch of people out there saying that CMHC has just made it easier for buyers to qualify a mortgage they can afford. It is a false narrative that builds division, leads to bad decision-making processes by both the public and the private sector, and it allows people to make decisions they would not normally make had they been told the truth. The truth is this. Any home buyer in Canada has been subject to the same set of rules during this entire period. Evan Fidel did not make it harder for first-time buyers or buyers to qualify for a mortgage with CMHC insurance. All Evan Fidel was, foolishly, like unbelievably, he would have to be so incompetent to make a decision like this. And I mean, he must really believe those that were overseeing him were really, really stupid. Because he said, oh no, don't book your insurance through CMHC. Go book it over at Sagan. Go book it at Canada Guarantee. Don't worry about it. We're going to underwrite their business. We're still taking all the risk. Don't worry about it. Except we're not going to get any premium. Let's not let the Canadian taxpayer benefit from CMHC. Let's let two private companies reap the rewards by me simply saying, putting a closed sign on our door, but saying you can get the exact same product at the exact same price, and we're still the ones underwriting it in the two doors that are next. I really believe, Jim, someone in government, like whether it's the House Finance Committee, I don't know who, But someone has to question just how incompetent was Evan Siddell that he would have done this. And why, within the first 2 months of her taking the role, did Romy Bowers come in? She must have just scratched her head and said, what is this nutbag doing? Why are we losing money, but we're still the ones on the hook for the mortgage default insurance? Why are we losing money that goes back to taxpayers and allowing Brookfield and Ontario Pension Plan, Teachers to Pension Plan, to make those profits? Doesn't make any sense to me, the former chief risk officer decided, and she brought that business, going to bring that business back home to CMHC to support the taxpayers. No added risk, not easier for buyers, no changes, because there were no changes over the last year. The only thing that changed was who made the profit. And there's only one man who made that decision. One man, and one man alone, who made the decision to put up the closed for business sign at CMHC, send the business to the next 2 stores down the road, while all of his staff still did all the work, and his company took all the risk. That's, Jim, is probably the bigger story.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, BNN Bloomberg today reported a Toronto Real Estate Board headline of Toronto housing market slumps in June as record-breaking activity fades. Jane in Burlington asks, Treb has boosted its sales forecast for 2021 to 115,000 homes and the average price to reach over $1 million. What's your forecast?
What my forecast is really is irrelevant. What you need to say is what is Treb forecasting? Like, what are they actually forecasting? And why is the press publishing? Like, why is the press saying that Treb has boosted its sales forecast for 2021 and its price forecast to over $1 million? Boosted. In other words, Treb says at the end of in July, we are now boosting our forecast in both the number of sales and in the average price. And then on the other hand, another headline reads, Toronto housing market slumps in June as record-breaking activity fades. Oh my gosh, I'm a home buyer. What am I supposed to believe? Well, what you're supposed to believe, this is the scam. This is the con. This is what inexperienced realtors allow to happen. This is what happens when you have an industry where the average realtor doesn't sell one home in a year. You have organized real estate telling the largest housing market in the nation that they're upping its forecast to 115,000 sales. They don't say anything else. They don't tell you the math that results from that statement. They just tell you we're boosting sales. Okay? Remember that. They're telling you that sales are boosted. Prices have gone up. They're going to be up over $1 million at the end of the year. It's going to be up the average price. Their average price, I hate to use that word terminology, is going to be over $1 million. That's what they reported in the report. In the same month that they say, oh, but the housing market in June is off its record-breaking pace. Okay. Whatever you want to say. Here's what it means. During the first 6 months of this year, Treb has reported 70,000 So basically, if you take 115,000, subtract 70,000, that leaves you with what for the rest of the year? 45,000. So Trev is telling you, in the second half of this year, they're only going to sell 45,000 homes. Interesting. That is a crashing housing market, folks. You're coming off a pace of sales of 70,000, equates to 140, down to 44,000 or 48,000, which equates to 96. This is classic house price correction territory. But then they're also arrogant enough to tell you the average price is still going to be over $1 million. Prices are boosting. We're boosting our forecast. Well, how does the math relate? What they're telling you is, with these low number of sales in the second half of the year, prices are going to be lower in the second half of the year than they were in the first half of the year. But this is what they're going to do. So even while the house prices are falling, the second half, they have just told you, homes purchased in the second half of the year will be at a lower price than the homes that were purchased in the first half of the year. So while those lower prices are falling, they're going to compare it at a monthly, year-over-year basis, so they get to pretend that house prices are still rising. Now, if you did this in the stock market, and the first 6 months of the year, that all the stocks purchased in the second half of the year were purchased for a lower price than the stocks that were purchased in the first half of the year, every single financial broker in Canada would tell you that the stock market is down. Prices are negative. People have lost money. But not with the magic of real estate. Because we're not going to talk about quarterly price change. We're not going to talk about the purchase price in the first half of the year versus the declining purchase price in the second half of the year. We're not even going to talk about how we're going to hit that $1,070,000 average. What we're going to do instead is we're going to compare July this year against July next year. We're going to compare August against last August, September against last September, October against last October, November against last November, December against last December, and we're going to report the prices are up year over year all those months. We're not going to talk about prices declining from the start of the year. Now, here's where organized real estate, who thought they were so smart when they brought out seasonally adjusted house prices. Because seasonally adjusted house prices don't follow this pattern. The MLS benchmark price currently trails the market by only about a month in the GTA. So even if there's an added 1 or 2 months delay, before the year's out, you're going to see falling house prices, if the Toronto real estate theory is true. The point of the matter is this, folks. They have come out with a report today that tells you how slow the market is going to have to be this fall, like from this point forward till the end of the year, versus last year. You guys see, at last year at this time, they reported 59,500 sales. Now they're reporting, they're forecasting less than 45,000. That is a huge drop in volume. That drop in volume, if it was on the upside, would have caused house prices to jump. But the way housing market MLS math works, it doesn't work on the way down the same way. Because what they're relying on is that the 70,000 homes purchased in the first half of the year are going to cover up for the slowing housing market in the second half of the year when only 45,000 homes sell. This is how the public is manipulated and why the seller beneficial system infrastructure exists. In the stock market, you would be told in August or in July that the stock market was dropping. In August that it's dropping. In September, October, November, December, you would be told that it's dropping. You wouldn't hear stockbrokers on television constantly referring to a price last year, giving you a false sense of security. You see, how organized real estate works is this. They want you to have a false sense of security, so you will go out and buy a home, and you will prevent or limit the correction that happens. This happened just recently in Vancouver after 2016, where in 2018 they were already telling you prices were going back up again. And it also happened in Toronto in 2019, because after the froth of 2017, prices dropped into 2018, and then magically they start going up again. They utilize these year-over-year comparisons for their own gain, not to tell you the truth. The Toronto Real Estate Board today, and it has been communicated in every single newspaper across the GTA, the scam and how it works. They have just reported that sales in the second half of 2021 are going to drop from 59,000 last year to only 45,000 this year. They are telling you that the average price in the first half of the year is higher than the average price is going to be at the end of the year. And then this is what's the magic thing of. On June the 15th, or in Trev's case, January the 15th, in Trev's case, January the 5th or 6th, they're going to announce the year-end stats for Toronto. They're going to claim record sales, or close to record sales. They're also going to claim record house price gains. You're never going to hear that from April through till December, prices were dropping. You're never going to hear it. Why? Because organized real estate works for sellers to get them the highest price possible. They won't work with buyers to get them the lowest price possible.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, CTV reported that sizzling house prices have put a squeeze on farmland in Canada. John in Richmond asks, why are we allowing farmland in BC to be sold to be covered in monster homes?
Well, I don't know why you're doing it, John. I mean, is it because politicians want to get jobs when they're kicked out of office or they decide to retire? Like I explained to you above with Keys Matt, Bedell, Carney, so on and so on and so on. I don't know. I don't know why they're doing this. I mean, the data doesn't support it. There is no theory that would support them allowing it to happen, but they do it. Now, what Canada needs to really be worried about is foreign buyers buying up Canadian farmland, because that issue is even bigger than buying up Canadian homes. There's nothing wrong with a farmer who utilizes his land or her land for farming to build a huge house on it to live in. Take an acre, cut it aside, build a beautiful house, nice pool, outbuilding. If you can afford it as a farmer, go right ahead. Nothing wrong with that, as long as that other land is still used for farming. Now, of course, with farming, you're going to have to spread the manure. You're going to have to spread pesticides. You're going to have to spray herbicides. So you know that if it's a wealthy buyer who buys that land, especially a foreign buyer, they're not going to want the land to be covered in manure because it has a tendency to give off an odor they may not like. May not like the chemicals being sprayed on their land, even though chemicals have gotten far better today than they were 30 years ago. What we need to be concerned about when, for the sake of the argument, the Communist Party of China, through their adversary, purchased Canadian farmland. That is a major problem. And we have to ask, why is that even legal in Canada? I mean, we track farms because, A, we can do it and nobody else does, but also because it allows us to have a better understanding of future price pressures on certain food sources. So we know right now that Canada currently has below 200,000 farms that are actual designated farms. So there's less than 200,000. This is a low that we haven't seen. Well, we only started tracking this data, I think, early 2000. So, I mean, the number is continually shrinking. So a lot of that will be because smaller farms get bought up by a larger farm, commercialized farming, corporate farming, however you want to term it. But our concern is, why are we not keeping Canadian farmland out of the hands of foreign owners? Why are our governments allowing, like in your case, John, I would suspect, based on this question, this monster home is probably the result of a foreign buyer buying up farmland, circumventing the rules in British Columbia, and being able to build a huge property while holding a large land mass in the process. You got to understand, land in and around the Greater Vancouver area, because of the geographics of your area, is far more valuable long term than land anywhere else in the country. Even the Greater Toronto area, there is a huge swath of agricultural land that you don't really have to worry about this sort of thing. But in Vancouver, it's a major problem. So the questions that you really need to have, in our opinion, are the same ones that we would have had for Evan Siddell. Because the outcomes or the requirements are only one of two things. One, the people overseeing the policy are ignorant to what the policies are causing. They're totally ignorant. They're oblivious. In other words, Evan Siddell, the head of the largest corporation, financial corporation in Canada, was totally incompetent in his job. He was ignorant to the fact that he was sending business to Sagan in Canada, guaranteed, but his own firm was still underwriting the business. He was ignorant. So in this case, with the farm, we have to believe that our policymakers, our government elected officials, are ignorant to how foreign buyers can buy up Canadian farmland and what the risk that places the Canadian public in. Or two, they're incompetent. They're not ignorant. They're simply incompetent. In CMHC case, Evan Siddell was simply unqualified to have the role that he did for the length of time that he did. And the impact, the fallout to the Canadian public, via Siddell anyways, is well documented. Record-breaking house prices under his watch, a housing stock that increasingly didn't represent the demographic design of the nation, and in this case, maybe $1 billion or more of profit going into private institutions instead of helping taxpayers. So with the farmland, are they this stupid? Are they this incompetent that they don't understand a nation who needs food to feed 1.1 or 1.4 billion, whatever the population is there, is buying up the premium farmland in the world that exists in Canada? Look, we may not have the best climate to grow oranges or kiwis or broccoli, but we do have access to the best freshwater sources available for our farming. We have tremendous soil in this country, and we have an infrastructure that really supports farmers in many ways. So are we really to assume that our adversaries, who in writing claim they're going to take over the world, are not going to come after our farmland? So, John, that's what I would say in response to this question. In the same way that we say we need to enact a right-to-own policy for Canadian homes, we need to have all farmland in Canada owned exclusively by Canadians. There is no exception to this. There can't be a tax structure designed to offset the risk we have by allowing our farmland to be owned by non-Canadians. We need to protect our farmland, use it prudently. That includes rationally looking at the option of using some of the land to build more housing on, if it benefits the public, lowers the cost of home ownership, lowers the cost of housing. But at the same time, we need to always be thinking 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years in advance and protecting ourselves against it. So, John, either the people overseeing this are ignorant or they're incompetent. It's one or the other. There is no in-between. No difference between CMHC sending off business to Sagan and Brookfield and Canada Guarantee and the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan. Something is up. I mean, what's next? Catherine McKenna is going to go to work for some climate fighting organization and be paid as their CEO? Hey, nothing would surprise me.
Ross, thank you so much for the update.
Thanks for having me on, Jim.
My guest has been home ownership consultant Ross Kay from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. If you have any questions for Ross, we'll ask them on your behalf if you send them to info@housestreet.com. Find us on Twitter @HouseStreet. We're also on Facebook, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HouseStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HouseStreet.com radio is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.